Hello guys, how are you?
Hello, everybody. We are waiting for the previous panel to end, then we can start.
Okay, Rita is here, so.
Yes, but it was 10 past 12.
Yeah,
so
yeah, we can wait just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. And also Nicoletta, I want also to give to her the floor. Okay. Julia is not recorded now. It is?
Yeah, it's recording.
It's recording.
You can see it?
No.
It should be
Okay,
recording.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Let me, when we have to wait a few minutes in order to start, because I think that we put on the time 10, 12, so we have a few minutes. Only to say to all participants, Italian participants, that I only remind that if you want to write the question in Italian, is not a problem on the chat. You can do it, then we will translate it and we give we do the question in English, but in order to allow the participation of everyone, don't mind. You can write down the question also in Italian. I have only to remember these things, and perhaps as these are recorded panel that will will be uploaded on the website. It could be useful to remind for each in each panel that this is a panel 3 of the forum on intercultural dialogue and learning. And this is the meeting is it was supposed to be held in Reggio Emilia, and but we are doing it as a virtual form, and in a virtual form. And in this case, we have already held the panel 1 that was about recognition of qualification of refugee qualification and prior learning, and the panel 2 that was about supporting the continuity of educational careers. So all these panel will be uploaded. So on the website of the conference, you will find not only the video presentations of the speakers and presenters that could be you can watch whenever you want, because they are on YouTube channel, but we will upload also the panels recorded. And if someone wants to have the abstract of the presentation, we can send it by email, or better, we will upload it as PDF on the website, as we have it, but we have not right now uploaded on the website, where you find the information on presenters and the video presentation. So these are some of the technical issues. And okay, 1 or 2 minutes and then we start. I'll have a look if presenters are there. Let me check if Eugenia, yes, is there. Then Siska and Han, I think they are there. Are you there, Siska and Han?
Yes, unmuted.
Okay, okay. Nektarios, Stellakis, are you there? Yes, I can.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. And Liza Mavromara. I don't know if the pronunciation is correct, but let me see if you are there. Let me check. Okay, yes, I can see you. Okay.
Sorry, it was muted. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so here we are. Now, as we know that participants can choose to participate not only to all the conference, but only to 1 or 2 panels. So perhaps we can have a brief introduction. I saw also Patricia. Hi, that is another presenter. Okay, so we can have a really brief introduction and then go into the content of this 3rd panel. It's like a big run. We are running from one panel to another, but the aim of the forum, of course, is to share experiences and knowledge, but also to share a network also of contacts in order to also to have the opportunity to know other projects, to know other experiences, to take some idea. So as I said in the welcoming session, we said that we focus on refugee and migrant education, but it is true that presenters are giving insights, especially on refugee education. And also in Reggio Emilia, we had a long experience of work done in schools, and not only, also in community with migrant families, migrant association, and so on. So there was this aim to understand how is the situation, what people in other countries or in other at national and local levels are doing on refugee education. So we have this special focus. And of course, we are all among us, we are people with experiences in projects, in government, at a national, international, or local level. But in the session of today, in this panel, we have also some contribution that try to focus also on the voice, to give voice to children, refugee children, always within a research approach. But I think that could be another step of this process, to give voice and to try to consider also how is the condition and the situation of refugee education together with refugee and migrants, in order to have to build together these narratives, not only to know how to build the policies, but also to build the policy together with. So we can, now I think that we can start with the panel. Panel 3 is about refugee children in formal and informal settings. As I was saying in the previous panel, when we decided to focus on refugee education, we really didn't choose to focus on university, but contribution goes in this direction. So we follow this direction, and the two panels that we had focus especially on this level, about the access to tertiary education. But it is true that, of course, when we speak about refugee people, we consider, or migrant, we have to consider the whole situation. We have considered families, we have considered children, and so this is the reason why we decided to have a special panel on children, refugee children, considering formal settings, considering schools, but also considering the informal setting. So, as I said, in our experience, local schools work a lot with migrant children and families, and a strong experience. And I invite also Italians that are participating in the panel to contribute and give also and share the experience on that. But the question is how refugee pupils are integrated into local schools. So we will have in this panel a special contribution from Greece. We have 3 speakers that they are from Greece, Greece, which has certainly been one of the most frontiers countries that has welcomed many refugee families in the recent years, even in emergency situations. And perhaps I think that presenter we give some insights about the situation of concerning the access to formal education of these children and the difficulties that they meet. And we will see also the difference considering one local context or another, considering the situation in camps or in other location. And so starting from this, we can open a comparison with other contexts, probably also Italy, I hope too, but not only. And in fact, the other contribution is from Belgium. And I think that is an important contribution because it gives us the voice of children. If you have seen the presentation, there are video, and this presentation allows to understand how formal and informal contexts are intertwined, and how especially informal contexts can affect the well-being and the sense of belonging of refugee children. And so I think that they are quite complementary, and but I will give, as in the other panel, the floor to presenters for the 5 minutes of summing up. And then, as I know that other co-presenters are there, of course, you can take the floor both. If you have 2 or 3, you can organize in order to have voice in this. And then we start with the questions. We open the discussion. So thank you so much. I'm giving the floor to, okay, Eugenia, we already know her, but she gave also a presentation on that. So if you want to summarize, Eugenia, in 5 minutes, the topic of your presentation.
All right, I think, Rita, my talk was a bit generic because I wanted to give an overview of what we try to do at the University of Patras in terms of responding to refugee education. So in trying to do so, we mixed both informal and formal activities and initiatives. But today I just wanted to make some points about this approach. So when we had the whole issue of refugee education coming into our doorsteps, we tried to be more reflective. And first of all, we tried to reflect on the marginality of the status of these people, how marginal refugee people are, and what we do in our national context in terms of counteracting this marginality and this liminal status that they experience. So we engaged with research and we deployed narratives from different refugee youth in refugee camps in Greece. And I think we found out that we need to make a shift from the narratives of trauma and vulnerability and marginality to narratives of agency. That these people, especially young kids, have so much energy and so much initiative and responsiveness to their circumstances, and so much focus on their future endeavors, that we can no longer describe them as being just marginal or traumatic cases or whatever. So I think that was the main point that has driven our research, our activities at the University of Patras. And of course, Nektarios is going to talk about other projects that he does with refugee kids. Another point, important point, was that we need to discuss for a paradigm shift, a methodological shift. This paradigm shift with concern to refugee education needs to drive us away from this humanitarian and human rights approach to refugee education. We know, of course, that refugee education is a very basic human right. We know that, but we don't have to remain on this sort of category. We need to shift our understanding to become more inclusive and to become more systemic. So instead of saying that refugee education needs to be secured within the system because it's a right, yes, this is true, but at the same time, we need to be more responsive and more efficient in terms of educating these people, in terms of providing the proper competences to these people. So there is so from advocacy, we need to become more professional and become and deploy more inclusive and culturally responsive methodologies within our classes in order to allow for these people to attain the high scores, to become very top students, to have all these ability to get all the knowledge provided in the classes as the other students. The other point that was interesting in this idea was the shift from the global promise that education, refugee education, has to be for all people. Yes, this is true, but we need to take into account the multiple registers at the national and local level that prevent or provide barriers to this promise from being accomplished. So at the Patras and through this the forum of dialogue, of intercultural dialogue and learning, we try to create a collective wisdom, a collective intelligence around these topics by discussing these topics, and especially the thorny and the very difficult topics that we need to address. For example, the otherness, the mobility issues, the social citizenship issues, the intercultural competence, and how we can promote these ideas within schools. And of course, we try to do so providing the spaces for public dialogue, so to enhance awareness around the issues. And of course, we discussed the so-called methodological turn, where we thought that we need to be more responsive in terms of research and theory. Qualitative methodology is very important because it gives voice to the voiceless, as we call them, or as the literature review calls these people. So to be more responsive and enable people, refugee people and refugee kids and students to voice their experiences and give us all the information we need as a society in order to address these issues, taking into account their own needs, perspectives, and ideas. So
no share. We cannot share. Please, the microphone. You close your microphone.
Sorry. A forum where you can find all our initiatives and how we deploy kids learning through various cartoon contexts, exhibitions, art-based projects, and so forth. So you can have more idea or a better idea of what we try to do. But practice has to be informed by, in theory, needs a very strong methodological component. And this methodological component is a qualitative aspect of, let's say, narratives or thick and very important data from these people in order for us to design the student experience or the teachers training seminars. That's
okay.
It for me.
Thank you so much, Eugenia. We know that we have already some questions from you coming from the other panels, so about teachers and so about this practical or how to organize with which kind of methodology. So, okay, thank you so much. I give the floor all to the Greek presenters. So if Nektarios Stellakis wants to say something about his presentation that here specifically on early childhood education. So 5 minutes only to summarize your content, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Perhaps you have watched the video. It is about a program providing early childhood education in the camps on 5 islands of Aegean Sea, Lesbos, Chios, Samos, Leros, and Ngos, during the summer months when officially kindergartens are closed. Due to the generosity of Open Society Foundation, we had some funds, and we sent 2 students in each camp, and they worked in the camp with children of early childhood age, means from 4 to 6, the 3 months from June to September. So the program was about keeping doors open. It means that early childhood education, it is a necessary, it was so necessary for these children and their families. And of course, there was a lot of challenges to be solved because, for example, the temperature is very high, and the space is very small. It's a container, actually, with one size 4 meters and the other size 7 meters. And we had there in Samos, for example, 23 children. There was no open space. In some cases, the toilet was far away. But even in these hard conditions, children were very happy for having the opportunity to be for 4 hours in a place only for children. And parents were happy also because they had some time to do the cleaning, the washing, or to do something else, or relax a little bit. Unfortunately, when we left in September, all these kindergartens remain closed. Officially, on 12th of September, kindergarten teachers should be sent by the Ministry of Education. In some cases, not all of them, kindergarten teachers were sent 20th of February. I was there. My last visit was on Leros and Kos, the second, the fourth night of February. So I have seen the situation just before this pandemic situation, which is a big obstacle because everything was stopped. So we have no information after that what is going on the islands, but for us, our mind and our thought is always with these children, because as you can understand, the opportunities of play, being with others, building relationships, and then learning are very limited now. So I would be happy to hear your questions. I am quite proud because this program was selected to be presented in the first Global Education Forum held in Geneva in the United Nations in December. And it was the only activity from Greece. I am also happy because it was not only the children, but also our students from university who understood the situation, what is going on the islands, and with the refugee and asylum seeking situation. And then they spread this information to other students here.
Okay,
thank you. And I am looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much for your sum up. And of course, from your presentation, we can see that school context matters. So you are probably, I don't know if you are telling us an experience in the highlands where children are in the camp. So perhaps it's quite, probably there are differences between schools done in this situation and other kind of situation like those that Liza are presenting us, that are primary school, probably in other parts of Greece with different conditions. So it's quite important to have also for you both or three both the question how school context matters, and so location is one thing, and of course which difference between early childhood education and prime. But Liza, I give you the floor for your presentation on perception of Greek school principles. So I mean primary education. Thank you.
So hello from me also. So I'm a psychologist and researcher at the National Kapodistrian University of Athens. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present our research today. So here comes my summary. So the part of the project that we presented was basically a part of a larger research study called Unintegra, which took place at the same time in Spain, Portugal, and Greece. And the general aim of the project was to identify and address the needs of refugees in all three host countries in order to facilitate their social integration. And more specifically, the actual part of the study that I presented in my video was was to identify the barriers and facilitators that can affect refugee students' integration in the host society's education system through the experiences, opinions, and perceptions of Greek school principals. So in order to obtain this information, we did 10 interviews with Greek school principals of public schools in Athens. So we focused only in the area of Athens, and they shared their understanding of the process and their experiences. We tried to include schools from all of the levels, so we included schools from early childhood education up to vocational high schools. And then we analyzed all of the interviews and used thematic analysis. So basically, just a summary of some of the things that were mentioned. We spoke about the programs that were implemented in schools in order to facilitate the integration process, such as reception classes, for example, or other activities that are used, different things that are used in kindergarten, for example, such as using storytelling and songs and focusing on different themes each week. And then one of the main part of this research was the understanding of the challenges, so things that act as barriers for the integration process. So here, the things that came up quite a lot were things having to do with difficulties with language, so the language barrier, and then cultural differences, so differences in the understanding of children's school, of what the school is and how schools regulate, how they worked in their own country and how they work in Greece. So differences in the education system. And also psychological barriers, so things like feeling emotionally insecure when they come to this new environment that they don't know how it works. Institutional barriers, having a lack of supplies, for example, in school. And then issues having to do with school attendance. So for example, something that came up quite a lot was poor school attendance, or an issue of changing schools quite often, or school abandonment, and then an inadequate system of school principals not being informed about these changes on time. And then also the communication between schools and refugee families, and the extent to which refugee families are involved in their children's education. And again, here issues about the language came up quite a lot, and the ways in which schools can actually help enhance this relationship. And we saw that the younger the children were, so in early childhood education, for example, the more involved the families seem to be in the schools. And also principals spoke about, in general, students' social life, so the relationships with Greek students and students from other nationalities. And generally it was mentioned that the relationships between refugee students and Greek students were described as being quite reserved, but generally no issues were mentioned by principals. They spoke about relationships being good in general between students and between students and their teachers.
1 minute.
Okay. And just the last theme, let's say, that came up was the role of NGOs and external organizations that take place in schools, and how they help schools with any issues that come up regarding the integration of students, from health issues to communication with families and anything else that comes up. I think.
Thank you so much, Liza. I want, before giving the floor to Siska and Han, I want only to anticipate a possible question, because yes, I'm wondering the role of family and the collaboration with parents, to both, because you are speaking about that, and also you think that principals see as a positive view of teacher skills. They stress the difficulties of refugee children and family, but in general they have, if I understand, a positive view of teachers' skills and competences in support them. But I think to understand, I think it is interesting to understand better how much the teacher are ready to that, if their training needs, if there are differences in the way migrant and refugees children are integrated into school life. Okay, this is a general question that perhaps could be connected with the one that Laura do to Eugenia, that she said Eugenia mentioned teachers' awareness on the way as one of the key to an open, intercultural and integrative approach to education, where migrants and refugees are seen as a resource. So she was asking if in their experience, which actions are more effective to foster this awareness. So this, in the meantime, you are thinking about the answer. I give the floor to Siska and Han from Belgium. And they are presenting interesting participatory research experience. So please take the floor.
Thank you, Rita. I think many of the things we want to say, or maybe the starting point why we created this research, which is what the movie we created is really like a really small part of what we did. But the starting point really ties in with what Eugenia was saying, that we discovered that a lot of children are always approached from a vulnerable, trauma-sensitive perspective, whereas I think, and Anne thinks, I'm sure, as well, that they have a lot of agency. And I think both in formal and non-formal circumstances, this agency should be more central. And I think with the movie that we tried to make, we also wanted to show this, that there are so many voices that these children have. They might not always speak that language. They might not always speak the languages that we have already in common. But if you take the time to listen to them, if you use all these different languages, if you document the process, that we can get very far in understanding what they are capable of and what they need as well. So what I actually also very much agree that we need a more robust qualitative way of researching this. So that's actually all I want to say about the topic. You can really watch. I think very proud of the movie we made, in a way, because it shows so many different, not as much for us, but the strength of the children.
Yes, I agree. I don't know if Anne wants to add something.
Yes, please. Yeah, but you can talk in between if you want.
Please.
Yeah. Okay. So we presented two stories of children, both 11 and a half years old. They are collated case studies. And in these stories, we see that children are resilient and powerful, and they use their agency on their own behalf. But we also see that their access to learning is often hindered. That is, of course, not only the case for refugee children, but maybe their social network is not always the strongest, so that they have less people advocating for them, and also the system doesn't always work in their advantage. And what we also aim to do in the project furthermore is to invite a reception center, the schools and services in the local communities to engage in a network. This way we hope to build a stronger network and more permanent access to the diverse opportunities the children are seeking, because they are longing for different things because they're so different as personalities. And I think there's a systemic access we're longing for, but also the strengthening of individual children. So that's it.
Thank you so much. I think that I agree. The video is really, really nice because it emerged the importance, so the expressing needs and also the role of music, of dancing, and this all this whole picture that give us really a reflection about skills. we start discussing about competencies and skills and how they can be recognized also within the formal setting. And this it's interesting, and also I think that the video shows how different people could take the opportunity that the contents offer, that could be a different opportunities that the same contents, for instance, reception center could offer different things perhaps, but also the things that are offered could fit with different needs. For one is strong in math, the other is not interested in school, and so on. So it gives us a picture, a whole picture. So thank you. I think that I don't know if I can open the discussion if you have questions. In that case, I think that the importance to focus on agency and the resilience is very strong. Also, in your case, I think that the methodology is something that could affect the way in which we are approaching to the topic. So we are all considering qualitative methodologies, all the four interventions. So perhaps if you want also to say something one on the other. Yes, I'm thinking about your presentation, what are the differences that depend on what the reception center can offer. If from a local perspective, we have different opportunities, and also in this discussion, perhaps also Italians that are following the panel could add their experiences. We can collect if you have questions. I have already done it for the first and also to Eugenia, the one of Laura. And yes, you can now try to answer, and I remember that you can send the question on the chat, or I can give you the voice, the floor. So if the one Eugenia, Liza, and Patricia, also if you want Patricia say something too, and Nicolas, sorry, I don't, Stellakis, I hope to see Stellakis, Nektarios.
No, it's fine, yes.
Yeah, sorry. If you want to answer, to say something about this first situation.
Yeah, could you repeat your question, please?
I wonder what kind of involvement you have, what kind of collaboration with the parents. So what kind of engagement do you have or in these kindergarten activities, and which kind of activities you provide for you, and for the Liza and Patricia, I saw I say something about the role of principals in understanding or analyzing the needs also of teachers in support the children's needs, and how we can perceive, how they perceive these children's experiences, and yes, and also Siska and Anna, yes, the strong methodology processes, but also the differences, and you give voice. It's your contribution, give voice to children. So perhaps we can interact. Also, the other can send some question on that.
Yeah. Would you like me to reply first? I'm not going to speak about the activities, because we tried to be usual activities you expect in a kindergarten. I mean, drawings, clay, dancing, music. But I would like to speak about collaboration with parents. This is very important, but it was also very challenging. One is that kindergarten students, all of them were girls. But in the camp, in some families, it was difficult for the woman to bring children in school, but it was the father. And because of cultural reasons, they should have only a limited contact. The other issue was the language, because we had some, let's say 15 children, but the language spoken were 8 or 9, and it was not English and not Greek. So our communication was non-verbal, which is easy with children, but it's not so easy with adults. And if you would like to have a translator, it takes days and days to find one, because the translator usually had to be in interviews with asylum-seeking person or in the hospital. And it was hardly to find a translator speaking all the languages. But still, we had some good examples of collaboration. In some cases, we had someone speaking French and translating for the African people. And we invited some mothers to narrate tales to children in any language they would like to do it. But for all children, it was very interesting. It was amazing. And we had one official meeting with some tea and some biscuits in order to give the parents the hope that children now have a school, they have a place, and normality is possible for children and their families.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I give the floor to the other, Liza and Patricia.
Liza could, because she took the interview, she conducted the interviews, could present something more in detail, but I would like to talk about the impression we had after the content analysis, the qualitative analysis we did as a team in the interviews. And behind this positive account of the interaction and collaboration between teachers and refugees, families, we suspected, we felt that we should take also into account hidden identity issues of teachers themselves, who perhaps are in a position of double-minded and confused, ambiguous feelings regarding the issues they are facing, because they need that in order to keep up a positive identity for themselves and for their schools, and in order to deal with the conflicts, the inner conflicts, and the conflicts inside the schools. It's not that they are not exist. They exist in a hidden way, and we could not present at this point of the research this suspicion and feeling, research feeling, but we believe that is one of the issues that are strongly connected with the need they present of cultural, of training in cultural mediation for themselves and for all the involved partners in the interaction, including the families, the teachers, the principals, all the team that collaborates in order to address the children's needs. So I believe that it is an account, a first account of barriers, challenges, and positive, strong issues, but there are many things that are hidden, and it is a challenge also to go deeper and study
perhaps
them.
if there are some teachers or some that are could be also write in Italian, write down some observation or some contribution, it's more than
Yes.
welcome. And there are a question that is probably also for you, for all, but if Jessica is asking if there are projects or policies concerning the increasing the trauma sensitivity training for educators in this environment. And I want also to add a question, as I have the microphone open for Siska and Anne, asking if this opportunity to do music, to dancing, if these are activities that are done into school or recognized by the school, or if they are apart, is a part of the shelter reception center and not recognized as skill into the school context.
Shall I answer this, Anne? Well, I think it is recognized. I mean, in the sense that the school might find this important enough, but I don't think there's enough time and enough attention being paid to it in general. When we ask these voices, or when we try to gather these voices or these expressions of the children, it was in the reception centers, not as much in school. So during this research, and this might tie in with the importance of a good qualitative framework of how you can conduct such type of research, we often were on the verge, our role as a researcher and a pedagogue was sometimes intertwined. And I think because we were so long there, and this longitudinal aspect made it robust in a methodological sense, because we saw so many different things. But yes, it's necessary to think about this. Does that answer your question? I don't know if teachers in a school.
Yeah, but because I think that, yes, you use arts. Art-based interview, you use storytelling, and it is quite similar to the other, what Eugenia was saying about cartoon exhibitions, about storytelling narratives. So I think that you are, it seems that these probably are methodologies that could help to understand things that in some other way you don't get into in a deep way. But even if I think that Sabine or Ruth, Sabine is asking how this kind of qualitative data can be recognized, because if I'm wrong, Sabina, you said that these qualitative data are not recognized as official one. I don't know. Probably you can exchange some opinion.
Can I? Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Anne, and then
yes,
Sabine.
This is a decades-old discussion in social science, I think, and I'm afraid I can tell what we're trying to do right now, and that is, of course, we want to publish, but we're also trying to tell the story in a different way so that we can touch people, and that people can, that even teachers, policymakers, that they're not inundated by long texts, but we're ourselves looking for ways to tell the story so that we do justice to the stories of the children. But I must say, I mean, Siska did the whole editing of the movie, most especially. I must say it is a hell of a job. It's a nice job, but it is a hell of a job. And I'm not sure that telling a story will be more convincing, but I think that is a quest that we are having to go through as social scientists. I think how can we convince policymakers and politicians that this might be worthwhile? There's no one foolproof method.
Can I add something on this topic, Rita?
Yes, of course.
I think thanks for the questions, very important ones. And I think what we need to do is to document our practice within schools. If we do that, and we can do it, for example, by implementing school-based research approaches, for example, action research, sort of collaborative or critical action research methods. So if we do that, we make the shift within the schools, and we allow teachers to become more aware of what they do in the schools. So we can try to have the school-based research or school-based training, and we have a lot of materials and tools to do so. For example, we in Patras have the multiliteracies project, Learning by Design, differentiated instruction training for teachers. We have all these into our hands. So we can bring a change and bring a transformation within the real schools. So we need to convince, for example, our departments and our sort of local professional bodies to do so, and to try to engage in these sort of activities. We try to do that by bringing some people from the local association to help us with an arts exhibition, for example. There's always a way to do so, but if you have a very confined framing of what you're trying to do, I think you can find the different activities to succeed that. And of course, to scale up your initiatives and your successes. And the other thing about the methodological turn, yes, it is important to have specific information and data, thick data, to describe and to analyze new experiences, multicultural experiences or diverse experiences. And of course, we have, again, the tools to do that. In Patras, we implement qualitative methods, the narratives, as you said, reflexive photography, identity texts, reflexive dialogue initiatives, it's all there. And another issue is to create reflexive sort of dialogues, spaces for public discussions and for public discussions. That's very important in order to enhance this awareness, to create a particular, an intercultural capital or a common understanding around these issues. Or, as I said it, a collective wisdom or a collective intelligence around the issues that we try to address. So it's a multifaceted. It has to be through research, through training and school-based training, and it has to be through public channels. That's our approach in Patras, I mean, so far. And we try to do everything. Systemic change, we brought too little, but I'm very hopeful because we have this forum. We bring a lot of people to discuss issues, and we have a lot of ideas, and then we get the pleasure of trying to bring a change into our local settings.
Siska, do you want to add something? And Patricia, perhaps, or Sabine? There was I was not there. I don't know the order. No, Siska, tell us that you think your opinion. Do you want to say?
Well, I just, because Eugenia was saying this about scaling up, I think one of the things that was very important that we saw in our research, this is this collaboration. You have formal and non-formal contexts, and practitioners have similar questions, but you have to invite them to communicate with each other. And often this is not the case yet. I have the impression that there is not enough communication between these different settings. The children bridge it, but the professionals should too. So that's why we created these networks where they actually meet, and it takes a lot of time. It's not easy to get everyone around the table, but this is very important, I believe.
Yeah, Thank you. And you are meaning also about the community, the work that you are doing as a community approach, I don't know how to call community approach, around starting from the refugee children, involving all the stakeholders and adults and young people involved. Yeah.
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 What we call we said it in the movie in a very short sense, but what we call a children's zone is like really creating a zone around where the children are actually living, and thus finding links between everyone who is involved to create that space, that time to watch and look.
Yeah, and then we have to see to analyze the impact of these actions. Yes, yeah. Patricia, do you want to say something?
Yes, me too. I would like to point out the need to see the problem as a two-way. All parts from the host country to the refugees. We should take all parts account in order to address the issue. Since parental involvement is an issue that has to do also, that involves also the school teachers, not only the refugees' parents. Teachers should have the necessary training on cultural mediation, and I read a question regarding that, if there are opportunities to educate and prepare teachers, at least in Greece, for which I could speak, for the integration of refugee children. And the impression we have from this research is that there is not a systemic approach, an official line from the government or the Ministry of Education regarding the training of teachers and the school personnel in the cultural mediation of to address the needs of refugee children. But we know that it's a matter of personal choice and drive from the part of teachers to find training opportunities, and they do so. There is a great interest on that, and there is also there are too many projects and programs, education programs available everywhere around, but there is not an official line. It's not organized in a way that could help on a national level to have a consistent approach. And if things are marginal and not so clear and specific from the part of the policy, we should consider also how difficult it is for the refugees to have, because of the fluidity of their lives, to follow an education plan. So one of the what we keep from our research, the most serious challenge is this fluidity everywhere, from the policy till the lives of refugees. And this is based on the circumstances, because things change from one day to the other for all of us.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's a practical issue.
Yeah. I think that we have two more questions. Sarah that ask, what about the methodological interventions in educating the local children to inclusion? And Emily, she said, I would like to ask if exists some kind of approach or methodology for bilingual or multilingual school systems. The topic of multilingualism, we will focus also in the last panel, but of course I give to you if you want to answer to these questions. if you know something, or if you want to bring your experience. But as I know the time is going, but if someone wants also to share the experience that has in Italy or wherever, please do it.
I can share only a short comment. At the beginning, we were very anxious about the language issue, but it was a message. We decided that imagine that you are in the beach or you are in a square and children are playing. They don't care for languages that much. They care for playing, meeting each other, exchange messages in whatever language they want, what we call officially translanguaging or whatever. So this was our way. We want to communicate and we can find a way to do that. Of course, it's much more serious when we come to education, the issue of language. But at least with young children and with our students, it worked at the beginning.
And some other wants to say something very short? If someone wants to, I think that it is another topic of discussion because about methodological intervention in educating local children. Perhaps the work that you are doing, Siska, and the approach, but not only you, also the other, also when Eugenia said, talk about transform the sense of the work and work with all the community, all the stakeholders, the people, include also intervention on that. But I don't know if Sarah wants to say something very specific about the situation of refugee. I don't know if you, Sarah, you want to open the microphone, say and add something? Or
good morning, everyone. I was just wondering if there's just as Patricia said, there's no a specific line. Everything changes. It's up to the situation. But I was wondering if there was just more youth logical intervention to promote inclusion among children, little children. Because refugees are carriers of a very hard history. And if there is a way to communicate it to children, Liza told about storytelling and songs, and this can be made with local children too, I guess. I was just wondering that. I was curious about your experiences. Just to change the point of view and put yourself in the shoes of the local children who are meant to accept. That's it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks to you.
Someone wants to say something? Now, yeah, as in the other panel, then we can continue to share questions and comments among one each other. We have the email, we can exchange. Then we have to have at least 5 minutes of break before starting the new panel. But of course, I give you the floor for the final talking circle. Someone wants to say something to Sarah or Emily, or we can continue on this apart. Okay, I think that probably, yes, it's a good comment. And like the time is already, yes, 10 to 1 o'clock. So I want really to thank you very much for your presentation, for your experiences shared. I remind you that video are uploaded, and I invite you, if you have not seen the video, to watch the video and to continue to exchange experiences on that. And probably we can think about also the possibility to enrich this panel about children experiences. As we know, it is one into the biggest conference, so perhaps it could have it could be a first step in order to share experience, but to enrich it also through the comparison with other contexts, other countries, other experiences. So let's go on sharing these experiences. And okay, for those who are staying with us also for the last panel, we will meet 1:30. And of course, thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
We have probably we are. There are also some other. Okay, no, okay, thank you. the comments.
Rita, let's have lunch.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye. 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 Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.